St. Louis.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to The Mole Hole with the hardest working sports announcer in St. Louis that nobody's ever heard of. He's Randy Molman, and the show starts now. I'm on. It's Thursday morning. Well, I'm back. A little rainy here in St. Louis on this Thursday morning. Good morning, St. Louis, and welcome to the Mole Hole. My name's Randy Molman. I was handed a list by Mark Langston of all the areas and all the outlets we have in order to listen to this station and my show in particular. And it's impressive. So if you're listening on your dial on KXOK or KWRH, welcome in. Also, both websites, kxok.com, kxok.org, kwrh929.com. All those sites are good. Radio STL, US Radio Network, radio station USA.fm, of course, the Facebook Live on Rock Webster, and there's a YouTube channel. Oh, this is getting, find KXOK on YouTube, and this is recorded and put up there later. It's like a TV podcast. It is live right now? It's live right now. See, I'm an old man. I don't know the technology. And, of course, all the apps, Odyssey, Get Me Radio, TuneIn, MyTuner, Simple Radio, all good. I didn't know. Well, I did know, but you didn't know. Both of these stations that we simulcast on cover about almost 1 million listeners. I mean, pretty good. And, of course, KXOK, as you know, and KWRH, proud to be the only Spanish voice for St. Louis sports in terms of St. Louis City SC and the St. Louis Cardinals. So if you speak Spanish and you want to listen to the Spanish broadcast, you can do it on those two stations. So pretty cool. Pretty cool. Today on the show, I'm going to dedicate a lot of it to the St. Louis Cardinals because we are in the middle of baseball season. And but I'm going to have some fun here in this first segment. Every year I do a fun thing on Facebook where I for the Kentucky Derby. And I don't wear various hats and walk around but I've been doing it for many years, and it always makes for a fun segment for me. I don't care. I do care. I don't know how many of you others will think it's fun. Most of the people I know are big Seinfeld fans as well. My premise has been, when I do this post on Facebook, is for the Kentucky Derby, if you owned a horse and you could only use the Seinfeld TV show to name your horse, what would you name the horse? And every year this post hits a home run. It is phenomenal because you don't realize, and by the way, I'm going to say this. I have several of my own rules. I'm not going to name a horse someone else's name. So in other words, I'm not going to name him Frank Costanza. I'm not going to name it Elaine Bettis. I'm not going to name it Art Vandelay. Like all these names from the show. To me, it's when you name a horse, you're naming it. It's almost like a phrase. Sometimes it's like a phrase. Sometimes it's like something meaningful to the owner. But it's never a name. Like you don't see a horse name. Here comes Michael down the stretch, or Randy is going to win the Kentucky Derby. There's no names. So don't do when I see Seinfeld fans answer this post and put in just human being names from the show, that doesn't do it for me. I want sayings that are from Seinfeld that would make fantastic horse names. In other words, you got to hear it in your head. For me, the best horse name for me is Master of My Domain. I will not go into anything further. If you've seen the show Seinfeld, you know what that means. So for me, when a horse is coming down the stretch and I can hear an announcer go, down the stretch they come, Master of My Domain in the lead. That's what I'm talking about. The phrases and the sayings and the subjects on Seinfeld. Don't tell me. For those of you that love the show, I got a couple of Art Vandelay. That was George Costanza's, like, he used to make up that name all the time whenever he would come up with a scheme. But that's a name. I don't do the name. Now, Vandelay Industries, which is what George made up that company name when he was looking for work. And he said he interviewed at a company called Vandelay Industries. Mark back here just said, no soup for you. Awesome. That's an awesome horse name right there. Like, that's what I'm talking about. So I'm going to share with you some of the names, or most of the names that we got here. And it is people texted me, by the way, off to the side. They're like, this is my favorite post of yours of the year, because everyone gets in. You all forget. If you haven't watched Seinfeld in a while, it brings back a ton of memories. For me, of course, Master of My Domain is my number one. My wife, my lovely wife, Karen, her number one horse would be Del Boca Vista. Del Boca Vista is the Florida retirement community that the Seinfelds lived in, that Frank Costanza and his wife and Mrs. Costanza wanted to move to, just to tick off the Seinfelds. They were going to move there for spite. Del Boca Vista. As a matter of fact, I have a T-shirt that says that. It makes it look like it's a real retirement community. It's like palm trees and a building, and it says Del Boca Vista. That would be my wife's number one, by the way. I have a buddy of mine, my buddy Vern, always texting some good ones. This is one of his favorite posts of the year too. Spongeworthy. Again, I can't explain it on the air. Spongeworthy, anti-dentite. And for those that don't remember, anti-dentite was the one where Kramer called Jerry out for being basically anti-dentist. Kramer got a license plate one episode where I'm trying to explain this correctly without saying the words. Kramer got a license plate by mistake given to him by the city of New York, and the license plate was supposed to go to a proctologist. And so it was vanity plates, and it basically said Amen. That was so that's a great horse name. Those of you who know, you know. I got Mulva. That's a classic. We almost named our dog Mulva. Mulva is, by the way, one of our dogs' name is Mulva, for those that don't know from Seinfeld. Oh, yeah. Because I wanted it to be when that dog was a puppy and being potty trained or whatever, I could come home, and if he had an accident, I could be like, Newman, just like on the show, or come home every day and go, hello, Newman, which I do all the time. I still do. And the dog's 13 years old. Mulva was, they were trying to guess, Jerry forgot the name of this girl that he was dating. He forgot her name. And so he and George were coming up with names because what she told him was her name rhymed with a female body part. So he and George started doing names. Mulva, that's one of them. The Maestro, for those that know, the Maestro was a great one. That'd be a great horse name, the Maestro. So the public address announcer for St. Louis City is Dan Sweeney. Dan chipped in a couple, and they were good ones. One of them is Double Dipper. If you remember the episode, George is at a funeral gathering. There's a plate. There's a whole table full of dips. George walks up, dips his chip in, takes a bite, and then dips it again. And someone walks over his girlfriend's brother and was like, "You double dip the chip." And so there's a whole thing about double dipping, which is fantastic. Yada 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 is a perfect horse name. One of my favorites. It would be my top 5. When Elaine, the whole episode was surrounding about yada yada over the most important part of a story. So it'd be like if you were like, the Cardinals got to the World Series and yada yada yada, they won. That's you're skipping over the best part by yada yada-ing. There was a whole episode on that, which is fantastic. Stopping Short was another good one Dan put in there. That was Frank Costanza's power move, not power move. His move on the ladies in the car. He would hit the brakes and he'd put his hand over to stop short. That was his big move. And that was in an episode. That's a fantastic horse name. One of my top 5 ones, too, would be another Frank Costanza one, which is Serenity Now. Serenity Now was unbelievable. That episode was awesome. I'm going to see what else we got here. Oh, Kramerica is a good one. That was Kramer's fake company where he had an intern reporting to him from NYU. And he said he told the NYU board that he owned a company called Kramerica. And so he had this intern running around with him for a whole episode. Slippery Pete, that's a good one. That was the name. That's the name of one of the guys that tried to move the Frogger machine out of the old pizza place. George was going to keep the Frogger machine, and Slippery Pete was a part of that crew. No Soup for You, someone did already, but Mark, that was perfect. That's one of my favorites. You could also do Soup Nazi because that's what they called him. How about another? This is why I love this post, because I still firmly believe the greatest TV show in network TV history, in my opinion, was Seinfeld. It's just my opinion. I know some people don't agree. But this reminds me of all the awesome episodes. Someone said Manzier. So it was the episode where Frank and Kramer went to a bra salesman to let him know that maybe we should have an undergarment to support men. And so Kramer wanted to call it the Bro instead of a bra. He wanted to call it the Bro, and Frank Costanza wanted to call it the Manzier. And so Manzier would be a great name. Come on. Even those of you who don't watch a ton of Seinfeld, remember this one. Festivus for the rest of us. Celebrating Festivus. Festivus would be a great horse name. Any iteration would be one of the best. And I chipped in. I was like, how about part of the Festivus celebration that Frank Costanza had was Feats of Strength. So you could do Feats of Strength as a horse name. That'd be a good one. So Jerry used to say, and he said it probably 100 times during the run of Seinfeld. Someone would tell Jerry a story. It was kind of a sad story. Jerry didn't care about it, and he'd just go, that's a shame. Like a sarcastic. It's like Trump getting indicted and actually being found guilty. And I go, that's a shame. Send him to prison. It's a shame. That's a shame would be an awesome horse name. Just the phrase. Can't Spare a Square by Buddy Sandy. The episode on Can't Spare a Square was Elaine runs to the bathroom at the diner. She has to go to the bathroom, and then she gets in there. All you see are feet. She's in the stall, and she goes to the bathroom. All of a sudden, realizes she shouldn't have toilet paper. So she's asking the lady next to her to give her some toilet paper, and the lady next to her is like, "I don't really have that much." So all you hear are their voices, and you see their feet, and then Elaine's like, "Come on, you can't spare a square," and she's like, "I can't spare a square. I don't have enough." And so it's a whole thing. So Can't Spare a Square would be a great horse name. One of my favorites. Another top 5 one for me would be Hello Newman. I mean, just Hello Newman. Down the stretch they come. Hello Newman. That would be the greatest. Man hands. Jerry dated a girl who had man hands. And they're at dinner and she's like ripping apart his lobster. She's like the prettiest woman, and she's like ripping lobster apart with her big man hands. Close talker, low talker, high talker. Those are all good ones. Chocolate babka. There's a whole episode about bringing dessert to a party, and they stopped at a bakery to pick up a chocolate babka. That was a whole episode. All right. This is also a top 5 one for me. They're real and they're spectacular. That was one of the greatest episodes because, okay, again, I'll try to say this without saying it on the air. Jerry's dating a girl. He doesn't. Elaine claims that they're a bit too perfect, his girlfriends, and Jerry's like, well, I don't know if they're real or fake. And then at the end of the episode, after he makes her angry, she walks out of the apartment and then she comes back in and goes, by the way, they're real and they're spectacular. And then walks out. That would be a great horse name. Real and spectacular. So I have a really obscure one because I still to this day watch Seinfeld, not regularly, but if I go to bed a little later than normal, it comes on at midnight on Fox 2 here in St. Louis. They run reruns. I still watch it. I still love the show so much. So there's an obscure one that I think real Seinfeld fans would know, and it's Next Stop Pottersville. That's the name of the horse. It came from the episode where Elaine was working for that guy, Mr. Pitt. Mr. Pitt wanted to be one of the people holding up the Woody Woodpecker balloon in the Thanksgiving Day parade. And the only way to do that was to call into this radio show and guess this big band. So, the games they play on the radio shows. Hey, be the 6th caller. And if you know the name of this song, well, Elaine's dad was a huge big band fan. So Elaine grew up listening to that. So she knew all the songs. So Mr. Pitt makes her call into the radio show. They're playing the song. Elaine's listening. And she's like, calls the radio show. And the song is Next Stop Pottersville. And he wins. He goes crazy. He's walking around his office going, Next Stop Pottersville. Next Stop Pottersville. It's like, to me, that would be a great horse name for Seinfeld. All right, let's see what else we got. Down the stretch they come. Let's see what else I got here. Yeah. I'm looking at my Facebook feed right now to see. These are the ones I threw in because people forgot these. Jerk Store, to me, would be a top 5 name. It was the episode where George is at a meeting. He's eating a bunch of shrimp. The guy across the table looks at him and says, why don't you, he says something like, there's no shrimp left in the ocean because you're eating them all. Like kind of digs at him. And George freezes. He doesn't have a comeback. And then we've all been there, right? We've all been in a situation where we're like, someone says something to you and you get flustered. You don't know what to say. 10 minutes later, you're like, oh, I should have said this. George leaves that meeting, same deal. 10 minutes later, he's like, oh, I've got a perfect comeback now. So he orchestrates another meeting with the same dude so that he can deliver his line. And he delivers the line and he goes, the Jerk Store called and they're running out of you. And the guy looks at him and immediately says, well, that's because you're their best customer or something like that. And then George gets flustered all over again. But the joke was surrounded by Jerk Store. Like that would be a great horse name from Seinfeld also. Roommate Switch. That's the episode where Jerry's dating a woman and then the woman doesn't laugh. Jerry's a comedian. He's dating a woman who will not laugh. However, he meets the girl's roommate and the woman's roommate has a very cute, laughs at everything Jerry says. So Jerry then goes to George and they come up with a scheme to go from dating one woman to the other woman in the same apartment. And they called it the roommate switch. And a funny line in there, George is always like, in the history of our world, no one has ever successfully pulled off the roommate switch. And so they work on it and they make an effort and it's really funny. Big Salad. That'd be a good horse name. That's the one, at the diner. That's the only place Elaine can get a big salad. Muffin Top. Elaine suggests a muffin bakery to her old boss, and he quits his job and opens up a store based on her idea, and it's top of the morning to you, and all they serve are muffin tops, no bottoms. Urban Sombrero, that's a good one because that's the front page of the Peterman catalog when Elaine was running the Peterman catalog. I Had a Pony, which would be perfect for a horse name. It's the episode where this old lady in Jerry's family gets so mad at Jerry for making fun of people with ponies. She's like, I had a pony. And that was a whole episode. That'd be a good one for a horse name. Okay. I can't believe we all forgot this one at the time. But someone reminded Shrinkage. The episode where George was swimming in the pool and the pool was cold and Jerry's girlfriend walks in on him changing his bathing suit. And he's like, I was in the pool. Yeah, Shrinkage. That'd be a great horse name. Puffy Shirt is another good one. It's where Jerry's talking to the low talker. He doesn't realize that she asked him to wear this ridiculously looking puffy shirt on the Today Show. And all he did was nod his head. Yeah, because he couldn't hear what she was saying. He ends up wearing the stupid shirt. Bryant Gumbel rips him on the air. Really funny. Importer, Exporter. That's a good one. That was in several episodes. Rogers Roasters would be a good one when Kramer had to move out of his apartment because of the red light shining from Kenny Rogers Roasters across the street. God, there's just so many good ones. This is why I love to take a half hour of my show to talk about it because I love it. And I love the post so much. It's technically sports related because we're talking Derby, but it's Seinfeld horse names. Marble Rye. We said Soup Nazi. Another great one. I would be in my top 10 would be One Magic Loogie. This is the one where Keith Hernandez is a guest star on the show. He's there was a whole incident years ago with Newman and Kramer, and they claim Keith Hernandez spit on them as he was coming out of the tunnel after a game. Jerry goes through this whole production about the spitter, and they're like, there must have been a second spitter because there's no, and they related it to the JFK shooting. It like mirrored the whole JFK setup. And at the end of Jerry going through the scenarios with the spit, he goes, that, my friends, would be One Magic Loogie. And so there you go. There's another horse name there. Let's see. There's a few. Vandalay Industries I mentioned, which is a Seinfeld thing. And then there you go. That's pretty much all of the ones that were posted. I'm sure we're missing some, but all I can imagine is the Kentucky Derby play-by-play guy just coming down the stretch, and he's like, man hands making a move. Hello, Newman out in front. Like all of the Seinfeld names. It would be the greatest horse race of all time. So it's my favorite. It's my favorite. I want to thank everyone. If you're listening and you contributed on that Facebook post, thank you. It is, I got like over 100 responses. It's always great. It's always fun. And also shout out, and I know they're not a sponsor, but I got a buddy of mine who is now part owner of the Great Grizzly Bear in Soulard. And we were down there watching the Kentucky Derby last week. So it was fun. It was a great patio day. And it was fun to watch the Derby. I'm not a huge horse racing guy, but I do like to watch the Triple Crown races. I mean, it's fun because you always want to see who wins it. And then, okay, do they have a shot to win the Triple Crown? And then, but what was sad was all of the horses that got euthanized. There was like 2 that got euthanized before the race, 3 after or something like that. That is sad. And they've got to look into that because That's a lot. That seems like a lot of horses to have to get euthanized there. So anyway, Seinfeld horse names. Look for it next year. Kentucky Derby. It's my so much fun. I do want to talk Cardinals here after the break, but this whole Wilson Contreras thing is alarming. And I don't understand it. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Also, the Cardinals are in the worst division in baseball. Let's be honest. So again, you're going to get mad at me, but I'm still being patient. We're a month in. It's a long season. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Plus some surprises, good and bad so far, for the Cardinals. Before I go to break, actually, you know what? I'll mention it after the break. You're listening to the Mole Hole. When I come back, Cardinal baseball and some odds and ends. Folks, it's time to let You've Got Maids focus on cleaning your home so you can focus on life. Whether you need weekly, bi-weekly, one-time cleaning, your home will be cleaned to your highest expectations. Your satisfaction is 100% guaranteed. You can get a free no-obligation estimate today. See how little it can cost to have all of your house cleaning needs met by You've Got Maids and their trained maids. All you have to do is go to you'vegotmaids.com, enter your zip code and a little bit of information about your dwelling, and they'll come back immediately with a free estimate. You've Got Maids offers cleaning services ranging from deep cleaning to simple everyday cleaning on a schedule that matches yours. Live well, laugh often, love much. Stop cleaning your house. Turn it over to You've Got Maids at you'vegotmaids.com. Height Digital is a full-service digital marketing agency that helps local businesses grow online. They offer everything from logo and branding to website design, search engine optimization, and paid advertising on Google and Facebook. Height was just named to the top marketing agency list for 2022 by St. Louis Small Business Monthly. Contact them today for a free digital audit to see how you can grow. That's Height Digital, HITE digital.com/ST-Louis. Are you a company who needs help recruiting and hiring full-time professionals in the areas of engineering or information technology? Then call Steve Tucker at Talent Edge. Steve has over 25 years experience in recruiting as a partner and can really give you the edge you need. Also, calling all candidates looking for new opportunities in engineering or IT. Steve will help match your skill set to the right opportunity. 314-276-0074 or check out Talent Edge at talentedgellc.net. Once again, 314-276-0074. Talent Edge. We are back here in the Mole Hole. My name's Randy Molman. Thank you for tuning in here on this Thursday morning. Before I get into Cardinal baseball, I want to shout out. I do some play-by-play work, obviously, as most of you know, for SIUE Athletics. I've been calling their softball games this year on ESPN Plus and on their Edwardsville. Actually, hasn't been on radio. It's been on the SIUE Cougar Network. But SIUE softball is on a tear. The Cougars softball team, first of all, how about all the local softball? St. Louis University, every so often I like to talk women's sports. I do think it's important. I cover a lot of women's sports. I broadcast women's sports. St. Louis University won the Atlantic 10 in softball, first time in their history. Mizzou softball won their opening game in the SEC tournament before losing to Alabama last night against one of the best pitchers in the world. But a big win to start the SEC tournament, even though they had a pretty subpar regular season. SIUE softball started their Ohio Valley Conference schedule 0-8, ended up 12-10, They went 12-2 in their last 14 conference games, 5 seed in the OVC tournament, played the 8 seed yesterday, and junior Sidney Ballman threw a no-hitter in the first round of the OVC tournament, an 8-0 Cougars victory. And Sidney Ballman, the junior, threw a no-hitter. Walked 2, but threw a no-hitter. So congratulations to the Cougars. They play at 10 o'clock this morning on ESPN Plus against UT Martin in the second round of the OVC tournament. And they've now won, I think, 8 in a row and 13 of their last 15 conference games. So they are on a roll right now, the Cougar softball team, and they've been fun to watch here at the last half of the season. I got to call their sweep of Lindenwood last weekend. So that was fun. All right, Cardinal baseball. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to start with, and I didn't get to talk about it last week. I'm going to start with a post I made last week about the Cardinals. And let me say, before we get into the team and the players and stuff, let me give you an overall view, my view. I think it is hilarious. It is hilarious, the amount of angst that we're getting from Cardinal fans here at the start this year. I am not saying as fans we shouldn't be frustrated. I'm not saying as fans we shouldn't be angry. I'm not saying as fans we shouldn't be wondering what happened this offseason to not add to your pitching staff. You should. Those are all valid questions. And as fans, what's the definition of being a fan? You have every right as a fan to be happy, to be angry, to be indifferent, whatever. However you want to root. You have every right, obviously. But I do find it hilarious. I was listening to Greg Amsinger from MLB Network on my way in this morning, and he sort of reaffirmed it. And I'll say this. I'll say it as soon as I say what I'm going to say. I find it hilarious that, and when I posted this was last week, so we're talking, it was after 32 games. Cardinals were 10-22 at the time. And my post was, to me, it is hilarious that in the last 23 years, the Cardinals have had one losing season. One in 23 years. Mostly with John Mozeliak as the general manager and president. Before that, Walt Jocketty, who John Mozeliak groomed under, worked for. So it's basically the same regime. 22 winning seasons in the last 23 years. And after 32 games in the year 2023, Cardinal Nation wanted everybody fired, burned the whole thing down. 32 games, 23 seasons. I mean, come on. What are we doing? I get being mad that we're bad and started out bad. I get that you're angry that the Cardinals did nothing in the offseason to get starting pitching. That they went with what they had, which was all middle-of-the-road starters. I get that you're mad that they messed with Jordan Hicks last year, and now he's not as good of a reliever as he used to be, although his last several outings, he's been really good. So maybe he's turned a corner. I get that you're mad that they pushed Jordan Walker, and the minute he struggles, they send him to the minor leagues. I get that you're mad at the whole Wilson Contreras situation. Cardinal fans are passionate. I think the best fans in baseball applies. I do think we do have the best fans in baseball. However, I do think that quote-unquote BFIB moniker sometimes slaps us back in the face because I do think sometimes you guys are nuts. You're crazy. You're freaking out over a team that over a 1-month time frame hasn't been good, when in 22 out of 23 seasons, they've been good and playing for playoffs. I think last year they were talking about it. Yadier Molina's career, and he was here, about 20 years, close. He played in something like 2 weeks worth of meaningless baseball games. You're talking a span of 20 years where we've had, let's say, 50 to 60 games in 23 years that were meaningless. In other words, we weren't playing for a playoff spot. We weren't in the mix for a playoff game. And you want everyone fired and the whole place burned down after 40 games. I mean, let's have some perspective. Okay? Now, in terms of this team, they've dug themselves such a hole. I was talking to Mark off the air before the show. And just to get to 500, just to finish the season at 500, they'd have to win 6 out of every 10 games. That's not easy. I mean, 6 out of 10 doesn't sound terrible. It's like, 6 out of 10 games, they could do that. That just gets them to 500. So you're talking about you've got to win 6 out of 10 games every 10 games. Plus, you've got to have 2 or 3 streaks where you win 8, 6, 7, 8 in a row to get to where you win this division. Now, the Pirates have lost a ton lately. The Cubs haven't been good lately. The Brewers have not been very good lately. The Central Division is not good. It's not a good division. So if the Cardinals go, let's say they go 6 out of 10, and then in some of those 10-game streaks, they win 8 or 9 games. Let's say 3 or 4 of them. Now you're talking 6, 7, 8, 9 games over 500. So it can be done, but it's a lot harder when you've had such a terrible, terrible start. Now, again, I know, this is going to anger people. By the way, I have a buddy of mine, and if he's listening, please don't take this personal. I have a buddy of mine and by the way, there are fan bases in our country that are similar to Cardinal baseball fans. One of them is Ohio State football. I have a buddy of mine who's an Ohio State football fan. Every year, they're in the college football playoff with a chance to, if they win 2 games, to be national champions. And every year, if they lose that very first game in the Final Four, or if they lose to Michigan, my buddy who's an Ohio State fan wants the coach fired. Fire him. We can't beat Michigan, fire him. We can't get to the national championship game, he's got to be fired. It's the same mentality. I get it. Your expectations are, it's the same with Cardinal fans. It has become the same with Chiefs fans, which is why Chiefs fans annoy me so much. Now they should win Super Bowls every year. Oh, we're the greatest of all time. We're going to win Super Bowls every year. And if they don't, then something's wrong. There's a lot of fan bases like that in the country. And the Cardinal fans are one of them. They expect to be in World Series talk. They expect to be in the World Series. They expect to be in contention, not just, quote unquote, sneaking into the playoffs and hoping for the best. I get that too. However, again, how'd you like to be the Miami Marlins fan base? Pittsburgh Pirates fan base? Oakland A's fan base, who are averaging 3,000 fans a game, and they're moving to Vegas. We've been there. We were Rams fans once. We were Big Red fans once. You're complaining about a team sneaking into the playoffs. We're in the playoffs. 70% of the league is not in the playoffs. And by the way, of that 70%, 40% of those fan bases rarely go to the playoffs. Royals, A's, Pirates, Reds, Marlins. I mean, Orioles. How about being a Baltimore Orioles fan the last 10 years? Angels, with all of that talent, they don't make the playoffs. They have had Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani, and they had Pujols. No playoffs for the Angels. They don't make the playoffs. Seattle Mariners. Come on, man. What are we doing? Again, I have to keep repeating myself. I understand your angst. I understand your expectations. I understand your frustration. I understand that as a Cardinal fan, what that means is we expect to be in the playoffs and we expect to compete for World Series. I get it. But let's be realistic. In the first 40 games of this season, is not a microcosm of what this organization has done for 23 years. Now, I've gone on long enough about that particular portion of this segment. Let's talk about going forward. I do think the Cardinals are going to have to tweak their model a little bit. Let me remind you what the model is. The Cardinals' model is draft and develop, use that talent for your big league roster, and to trade for proven pieces. We've seen that time and again, dating back to when Walt Jocketty traded Kent Bottenfield and Adam Kennedy to the Angels to get Jim Edmonds. We saw it when Jocketty traded a group of prospects to the A's to get Mark McGwire. We saw it when Mozeliak traded for Matt Holliday, when they traded prospects to get him. We've seen Mozeliak do it when he traded for Paul Goldschmidt and for Nolan Arenado and for Marcell Ozuna. Unfortunately, Ozuna didn't work out, and he gave up two young stud pitchers who we could really use right now, Sandy Alcantara and Zach Gallen, who are both studs. So that one didn't work out. Goldschmidt trade worked out. Arenado trade worked out. The Randy Arozarena trade didn't work out. We did get Matthew Liberatore, who is pitching very well at AAA. He'll be here at some point this year. Adam Wainwright, I've said it on the show before, said last spring training, Matthew Liberatore is going to be a top of the rotation starter. He's got that kind of talent. That's from Adam Wainwright. It's taken Liberatore a little longer to develop than everyone wanted. But let's remember, Liberatore's only, 21, 22? He's a young guy. Big, strong lefty. I have no reason to believe at this point that he is a flop. I think hopefully he'll be good. They got rid of, there's a guy down in Adolis Garcia, who was in our minor leagues. We couldn't find a place for him. We couldn't get him developed. Gave him up for nothing. And he hit the waiver wire. So before everyone says, oh, we missed out on that guy, so did every other major league team. Nobody picked him up. And then we released him. The Rangers picked him up. Now he's an everyday player, and he's one of the best hitters in the American League right now. So there have been some clunkers. No general manager is perfect. No president of baseball operations is perfect. Everyone has clunkers. Everyone makes bad trades. Mozeliak and company are no different. Stuff does not always work out. But I'll tell you, for 23 years, despite some things not working out, they had 22 winning seasons. So again, we could sit here and complain, but they've been largely successful. Now, in terms of the model, draft, develop, use those prospects to fill out your major league roster, and whatever extras you have coming up in the majors, you can use those as trade pieces to go get proven players. They've done it since Jocketty was here, and they're doing it now. They do not dip into the big money, long-term free agent contracts. They don't do it. They haven't done it. They didn't do it with Jocketty. They don't do it here with Mozeliak. And then people will say to me, what about Matt Holliday? They traded for him first. What about Mark McGwire? They traded for him first. Jim Edmonds, they traded for him first. Edgar Renteria, they traded for him first. Goldschmidt got extended after they traded for him. The Cardinals do not go out and sign external star free agents to long-term contracts and big money. I do think that needs to be tweaked. And I'm not saying they have to go all in on that. There were two free agent pitchers this year that everyone said the Cardinals were linked to. They didn't sign them. Both pitchers are on the disabled list. They're not pitching. They're hurt. This is why the Cardinals don't do that. They're a little smarter with their money. They're a little more conservative with those contracts. And by the way, I get it. I understand why. The Mets ended up signing Jose Quintana. Cardinals were in on him. They wanted him back, but it got a little bit too expensive for them. The Mets signed him. He's on the DL. I think he's IL. I think he's going to be out for the year. Now, imagine Cardinal fans Oh, we signed Jose Quintana. Great job. And then he goes on the IL. And now our salary is tied up in a pitcher that is on the injured list, and then we can't go make other moves to make the team better. So I get what the Cardinals do and why they do it. That's why they're still one of the best run organizations in all of pro sports. Could they be a little more aggressive? Do they need to tweak their model a little bit in terms of free agents? I'd say yes. A great example is last year when they would have had to part with 3 or 4 of their best top prospects to trade for Juan Soto. And then, because he's in his early 20s, they would have had to have signed him to a 10-year, $400 million contract to keep him. If you have a once-in-a-generation talent like that, and you have the prospects to make that deal, then I think the Cardinals need to consider that more than they do. I think pitchers, they never pursued a guy like Max Scherzer, who 8 years ago, was a free agent. You could have signed him to a long-term contract, and he would have more than paid for itself in that contract. So I do think the model, I think they have to dip their toe more into the young, long-term free agent pool. I'm not saying they got to go be the Dodgers or the Yankees and blow up their payroll. The Cardinals are not a big city payroll. They just aren't. So, but I do think if you're going to have that kind of model and it's worked for you, I think you get to a point where you're hamstringing yourself if you don't at least provide a small element of external free agency to get a guy here and there that you're like, okay, young player, so far so good in terms of talent. We can have him locked up for 10 years. And by the way, 4, 5, 6, 7 years from now, he'll be cheap because the salaries are blowing up. So I do wish and hope that they would do that. If you look at our minor leagues, we only have 2 or 3 young arms, Liberatore being one of them. McGreevy's one, Tink Hintz is one. Other than that, they're pretty thin. Dakota Hudson, what's going to happen with him? He's just another guy now. So they've got to be able to add to the staff without always signing a aging veteran for 2 or 3 years. Pursue one of these young guys. Sometimes. You can't do it all the time. Because you end up adding 2 or 3 of these guys and you have 10-year contracts and then 1 or 2 of them get hurt, can't stay healthy. Remember when they were in on trying to get Giancarlo Stanton from the Yankees, but Giancarlo Stanton was like, I don't want to play in St. Louis, so I don't want to be traded there. But the Cardinals were offering a package. Stanton, I don't think he's played maybe 1 full season since. That's like 4 years ago. So how screwed would the Cardinals have been tied to that contract? So look, I do think tweaks are necessary, but I also think the model still works. When I posted this on Facebook, I had people go, the model's outdated. They don't want to win anymore. All they want to do is sell tickets. Trust me, the front office wants to win. They know that if they don't win, people are going to stop going. There's other options now here during the summer. People are spending money on soccer, St. Louis City. People in the spring spend a lot of money to go to Battlehawks games, $35,000 a game. That's about the same number of fans that go to Cardinals games. People are spending their money on other pro sports here in St. Louis now. The Blues just won a cup a few years ago, so their ticket sales have been brisk. So if the fan base gets frustrated, DeWitt and that front office knows that if they don't win, fans are going to stop coming. This whole notion that all they care about is selling tickets. Act like you want to win. Be a front office that tries to win, which I think they've done. They've proven it for 23 seasons. But if you start to go in the tank this year and then you do this again next year, come on. That front office wants to win, and they want to win because they want to sell tickets. They know the Cardinal fan base is rabid and loyal, but they want to give them what they want. This isn't the Kansas City Royals where they've had 2 winning seasons in the last 30 years. I mean, so now this current team in terms of the way they're made up. And let's talk about the Willson Contreras. Again, I say all this, but there are some alarming things that pop up this year. You signed Willson Contreras to replace Yadier Molina, and now it's coming out that he's not going to catch every day anymore. What? He's 31. He's not old. So my question would be, if we're talking about how well the Cardinals management has done over the last 23 years, let's talk about this being one of the things that is a head scratcher. You had Yadier Molina for 17, 18 years. You had no plan. Your plan was to go get Willson Contreras, and now you're like, oh, that was bad. He can't catch every day. How did you not know that? How did you not do your due diligence? By the way, the Cubs weren't catching him every day. We all knew that. Everybody knew that. All the fans knew that. You went and signed a guy that's not an everyday catcher, and now you're saying, oh, he's not an everyday catcher. We already knew that. And when you put Kisner in the lineup half the week, you're taking a bat out of the lineup. Now, in the last week, he's been really good. 3 doubles, a home run, hitting around 400. Good. But so what we're learning is that Willson Contreras' future here, we still haven't solved the catcher problem, number one. And number two, Contreras' future here, and most of the at-bats he's going to take in this 5-year contract is going to be as a DH or a corner outfielder from time to time, and maybe catch 40, 50 games. You didn't solve the catching problem. You threw money at a DH. That doesn't help your depth. So now that signing is going to force you to trade guys you don't want to trade because of depth, because Contreras takes a spot somewhere other than catcher. I was begging the Cardinals. I wanted them to take Sean Murphy. I wanted them to trade with the A's and get Sean Murphy. By the way, he's killing it in Atlanta. The Braves bucked up. They made that trade, got Sean Murphy, and he's killing it for the Braves. And he catches every day. That's the guy the Cardinals, to me, should have gone after. And by the way, it fit their model, which is why I don't understand why they didn't do it. Trade prospects, good prospects, for proven talent. And they pulled back on that model and ended up signing Willson Contreras instead, which is a little off-brand for the Cardinals mostly. And it's not working out so far because not that Willson Contreras hasn't been, especially lately, hitting much, much better, but that you didn't solve your catching problem. Contreras is second on the team in doubles. He's driven in 17. His average is up to 266. And a 345 on-base percentage is not bad. So offensively, I've got no problem with Contreras in the lineup, but you didn't solve your catching issues. Goldschmidt's getting hot at the right time now. Boy, Nolan Arenado. It is mystifying how he has struggled out of the gate so far. 233, 285 on base, 336 slugging, and just a 620 OPS from Nolan Arenado, MVP candidate. Ooh. I mean, look, it's Nolan Arenado. He'll put it together. But that's one of the main reasons this team has struggled. One of your big-time run producers isn't producing. What I'm curious to see happen is, out of this group of outfielders and utility players, who are they going to package together to get pitching? Because that's what's going to happen. You know what's going to happen. The Cardinals are going to trade for an arm, or maybe two. So out of this group of outfielders, what can you get back? O'Neill, Nootbaar, Carlson, Burleson. You also include the utility guys in there. Donovan, Gorman. What can they get back for? Look, I don't think Tyler O'Neill's value is any good anymore. He can't stay healthy. He's on the IL again. and was hitting just 228. Dylan Carlson is great defensively. He's hitting 226. I don't get the love for Alec Burleson. To me, he's the odd man out. Why is he in the major leagues? Alec Burleson's hitting 216. This offense that was supposed to be killing it this year, they were supposed to make up for not having dominant top of the rotation starters. Well, we're going to have an offense that scores runs. We just need a guy who can get through 5, and our offense will take it from there. Tommy Edman, 239, 310 on base. Nolan Arenado, 233, 285 on base. Alec Burleson, 216, 266 on base. Dylan Carlson, 226, 270 on base. Tyler O'Neill, 228, 283 on base. That's not going to get it done, especially with a middling rotation, which we all knew going into the season. Contreras has been one of your best hitters overall, especially getting on base at 345. Nolan Gorman has been a find. His average is down to 255, but how about a 518 slugging and a 346 on base percentage? Nolan Gorman, a surprise this year that no one was talking about. And by the way, I hate to say I told you so on the Jordan Walker thing. I told you so. I didn't understand why he made the big leagues to begin with out of spring training. He didn't face the quality of pitching early on, the pitching that he was raking against because they were all at the World Baseball Classic. They come back the last 10 days of spring training, he doesn't hit. He makes the big league roster. Now, he did have a 10, 12-game hitting streak right out of the gate, but he slumped pretty much immediately after that. They sent him to the minor leagues, and he's struggling there. 2 extra base hits in 11 games, hitting 175 at Memphis. He wasn't ready. He's going to be a star, but he wasn't ready to take the responsibility yet. Now, we make a couple of trades of these guys to clear the way, and he'll be back here, and then you're going to have to run with him and just let him fail and figure it out. And if the Cardinals keep falling farther and farther behind, I could see that happening. This might be the first year, by the way, as we get here close to the end of the show. This might be the first year, if this keeps going the way it's going, that the Cardinals are actually in a position to trade away talent to collect talent for the future. They've never had to do that. In 23 years, the Cardinals have never been sellers. This could be the first time. And they could get a good haul of very good young prospects back. If Tyler O'Neill turns it around, he could be a trade piece. Dylan Carlson could be a trade piece. They're not going to trade Gorman or Walker, nor should they. But they could make some deals and come back with some really good young players for the future. First time in a long time. Again, 23 years. Anyway, calm down on the Cardinals. Calm down. You don't need to burn the whole thing down. Make a few tweaks. Hopefully this offense gets going, and the Cardinals will make a run at this here before the season's over. Long, long, long season. All right. Thank you for joining me. My name's Randy Molman. You can find me this weekend on the SIUE Cougar Network. I'll be calling baseball, Division I baseball this weekend, Friday and Saturday. And then my calling sports takes a bit of a breather. I get a break for the summer. I'm calling a few things professional basketball-wise, but other than that, it's going to be nice and calm. I know. Less busy. What am I going to do with myself? Yeah, spend time with my family. That's right. My wife's like, that's fine. You go do your thing. My name's Randy Molman. Thanks for tuning in today. Until next Thursday. So long, everybody.
serio la calidad. La mejor bicicleta eléctrica es la que mejor se adapta a ti, la que te resulta más divertida de manejar. Descubra las bicicletas eléctricas Pedego en St. Louis, en la esquina de enero de 1944 y Big Bend en Kirkwood, Missouri, 314-698-2433. 314-698-2433.
The Spanish sports voice of St. Louis, KXOK.
Algunos blancos podrá venir, aún no reparé, aún tu nombre es